Listen, on the radio, no, not right now. But you'll see, maybe up here it'll give you 15 or 20 people or whatever. Just do that. Now we're kind of live, so I'll come over and play some music.
So I shouldn't talk into the mic.
You can. I think it's muted. You'd have to unmute it. Let's go with this one today. See that one up on the left? Can you hit the triangle button? Over. Yep, that one. Nope. Down by the green light. Yep. Great choice. Producer. Good choice. That is 300 Violin Orchestra right there, folks. Welcome into the bridge. Bridging civil tension. Of course, you probably don't want to burn that bridge. You may have to go over it at some time. This is Bridging Civil Tension. He is Phil Wallace, the entrepreneur, author, mentor, coach. He is, yeah.
It's like tip off right now.
Reminds me of my son being in football.
Right, there you go.
Played that to really get you jacked up.
Yeah, we just let that play.
Well, he played it.
There you go.
He played at Hebron. They used to come in all holding hands.
Yeah. Of course, I'm Kent Jones, CEO and founder of 216 The Net. You're caught in the net, which is fantastic. And, of course, Bridging Civil Tension brought to you through the financial support of our good friends over at Gold Shield, goldshieldtoday.com. Check them out. On screen with us, we have author, coach, leader, leadership guru, right? Dennis Mellon. Dennis, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on today.
You got it, man. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fun thing about Bridging Civil Tension is this is a show where we cover things that most other people are afraid to.
Right.
That major networks and people who are regulated by FCC and things like that are just a little bit afraid to touch on. And we do it because we want people to understand you can disagree with one another.
Right.
You don't have to see eye to eye, but we still have to love each other, right? And walk out as friends and say, okay, we've got this. And you know what? Phil is an outstanding human being, and his opinion is different than mine, and that's okay. Right? Or it's the same. I don't know.
On some topics.
Depends what you want to yell at me for.
Greatest of all time, you know.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. All right. And Dennis, you, and I'm going to get this wrong, so tell us the analogy, because you talk about being a bean.
Fantastic analogy, though.
Right. Well, what the bean really is it's a coffee bean. If you're a leader, you're the influence on your team. And my tagline is be the bean that changes ordinary water into gourmet coffee. Be that influence that guides people to performance levels they never dreamed of.
That's it. I'm wafting my coffee into the microphone so people can smell that gourmet coffee
Through the microphone?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. We're gonna have to explain how that
works. So give us a little bit of your background so we can kind of catch people up to what kind of put you into this space of being a leadership trainer.
Well, it started out, I could go back to 10 years old when I was at my father's Air Force base looking at the planes flying overhead, and I went, hey, that's pretty cool. That's what I want to do when I grow up. Of course, my wife says I've never reached that point, but that's a different story. But from there, it was the singleness of purpose. I wanted to be a professional pilot, and I went to the Air Force Academy. I went to between the reserves and active duty about 20 years. Retired as a lieutenant colonel and a pilot the whole time. I got hired at Alaska Airlines, the 5th largest air carrier in the United States. I went through all the Air Force leadership schools, all the management and leadership training for Alaska Airlines, where I was the fleet captain for about 550 pilots and 40 instructors. And you know what? every one of those guys and gals all thought that they could run the place better than me. So there are a lot of egos involved.
Sure.
But there's only one decision maker. So how do you end up influence?
Right.
So that's the backstory behind all this. And then back in about 2008, out mountain bike riding, doing healthy stuff and everything, I had a serious heart attack.
Mm.
Of course, I don't think there's anything that's not serious with a heart attack. But
Right.
anyway, I lost my medical. I had to do my do-over, my redo. And that's where I got into thinking about writing a book of how to recover from that. I mean, 18-year-olds face it all the time. What school do I go to? What career path do I go to? What do I do?
Right.
I had the reverse order. I had a singleness of purpose until age 56. And then it was like, okay, now you're an 18-year-old. Here's your do-over. What do you do now?
Wow.
So,
Man, well, you don't look a day over 57. So, no, I'm kidding. So as we talk about leadership, especially in today's world, and in the last few weeks, we've been getting in deep, but there's so much turmoil. There's so much different differences of opinions, and there's everybody wants to be a leader until you're in that seat, I think,
And that's when it gets real.
and you're like, I didn't sign up for this, did I? So how do you kind of lead people through being that leader with the world being in such turmoil?
well, part of it goes back to thinking about, it's actually a General Patton quote, a lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way.
Right.
But, in today's world, we kind of have to look at it as being a little more inclusive. We have to look at it as inspiring people more instead of direct them, because people are looking for that relationship leadership where you inspire rather than tell. There's a difference between a boss and a leader, and being a leader, you really the most important thing is developing those relationships.
Yeah.
Making the connection with them.
And of course, for those who are on the radio, you don't see this. Dennis, of course, is at his home studio, and that's because he is a coach for Jacobs, and you are a Chris Lake South Gator. And there's little we couldn't have them in the same room. We had to keep them separated.
Right.
Well, I've always figured that Gators make pretty good purses and shoes. So right across the bow, right?
What are your colors now?
Yeah. Scared underwear color.
Scared underwear color.
That's right. Yeah. Fantastic. So, and we Joe, you coach varsity baseball as well.
Well, actually, yeah, I have in the past. We kind of move around where the needs are. I've been a JV coach. I've been a freshman, sophomore coach. So we kind of where the needs are.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. And so with leadership today, it's not the same as when you were, 20 or 30 years old. I mean, when you were 20 or 30, when I was 20 or 30, it was all about, listen, you need to be in at work.
Right.
I could tell you that to your face as a good leader. And I could say you're letting your team down because you're not here.
Right.
Now you're putting stress on everybody else. You're okay. Blow your nose. Get into work. But as a leader now, we can't talk like that to people.
Well, no, you have to inspire them. They will actually work harder or be more inspired if they know their purpose or their why. In my talk, sometimes I get into a story, and I don't know where I got this from. It might be a John Maxwell thing or something, but it's a guy walking through a construction site, and he comes by a bricklayer, and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing there?" And the guy doesn't even acknowledge him and keeps slapping the cement and the bricks. So he goes, okay. And he walks on to the next guy who's laying bricks also. He says, "Hey, what are you doing there?" He says, "Well, I'm collecting a paycheck." And he goes on to the third guy. He says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I'm building this fantastic cathedral. It's going to house 800 parishioners on Sunday. We're going to be able to take care of homeless." Now, the point of the whole thing is, which one of those guys is inspired to work more than just, one brick at a time? It's the guy that knows their purpose, their why. And that's what we have to do now is provide that purpose, that why.
I mean, I think you touched on also when you talked about building that relationship, especially as far as being a coach. When you're building that relationship and there's that heartstring tied to it, kids will work harder for you. You're showing them that purpose. You've built that relationship. You're not just a dictator. You're a mentor, and you're leading them after you built that relationship with them. And I think that's going to take, in his position as far as a coach, kids to a higher level.
Yeah.
Well, I think it takes any team, any organization, any company to a higher level if they know their why.
And that's a hard thing to pull out. And we talked a little bit about it on the grounds this morning, but that's a hard thing to pull out of people is their why, especially with you own your own business. Both you guys own your own businesses. Nobody's going to love that or work as hard on those businesses as you.
Right.
So how do I get an 18-year-old kid just out of high school to understand his why to work hard for me?
Well, I think one of the things is you do it by example. I mean, nobody is more invested in the company and should work harder than whoever the leader or the owner is. You can't expect a $15 an hour worker to be as inspired as you as the owner of a company that has all that sweat equity and investment in the company. Somehow or another, you got to help transfer that, but they'll never be at the same level, or they shouldn't be, because you need to set that example.
Interesting. So in today's world, I think a lot of companies want leaders. I think they try to build leaders, but then they don't want leaders. They want followers. Right? I'm going to put you in a position of leadership as long as you do exactly as you're told and toe this line.
I'm going to put you in a leadership position, but I'm not going to allow you to be effective how you are effective.
Yeah.
With your style that works. You have to go this way, this cookie cutter way of leadership, corporate America style, even though it's not getting the results that we're looking for.
Right.
And you put people in a position where they're ineffective.
And that's hard, right? And that's if I want to change water into gourmet coffee, how do I do that as I'm being,
Well, it goes to
the beanbag.
Yeah, it goes to what you want to get out of your company. If you want them to be inspired, if you want them to be the cathedral builder, you've got to inspire them some way, and you have to have a constant professional development program going on, because you never know when somebody's going to leave or whether you're going to let somebody go. There's statistics out there that says if you let somebody go, it's going to take about a year and a half to retrain somebody to that level. Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to lose all that money for that year and a half off of that worker. Why not try and rehabilitate the worker or inspire them in a way to change them before the days of you make a mistake and you're fired. Why don't we let them let them learn the lesson and keep moving forward? Now, obviously, if they are not cutting it, if they're consistently what we used to call in aviation intentional noncompliance, showing up late and things like that, if it doesn't get corrected, you have to hold them accountable. And the ultimate accountability is hasta la vista, baby. We're the company's moving in a different direction, and so are you. So
that's right. Now, you both coach high school age, athletes and students,
right?
And you only have them as you say, Dennis. If you are the JV coach, you got them for a year, or if you're the freshman coach, you got them for a year. How do you make your mark to when they're our age, remember back and go, I remember Coach Mellon. I remember Coach Phil said this about life, and he was right.
Well, that's kind of goes with something that I tell them. One of the first meetings, I always tell them, hey, you guys are part of my 30-year plan. And they go, Coach Mel, I mean, you're going to be in your 90s. And I say, no, in 30 years, I want to be that little voice in your head that you remember, hey, what's important now? Let's move on to the next pitch. Because all those baseball aphorisms work in any kind of team, in any kind of business. So it's one of those things of you're developing, you're in their ear, holding them accountable. Obviously, I mean you can't be their pals, their best friends, and hold them accountable. You kind of have to juggle that a little bit.
Right.
But it's important to inspire them to be a being themselves in the future.
Interesting. Yeah. What about you?
I mean, even going with him, how he says he has his 30-year plan. You know, step one is to care, right? When kids genuinely feel that you care about them outside of just what they're producing on the court, in my situation, I feel like they'll remember you. But then also, kind of piggybacking what he's saying, paint the picture for the future for them, right? This is why if I just teach you a jump shot, that's awesome, but I really want to teach you life. That's why I have this platform. And when you start to show them, hey, this is what your future can look like, and you have that relationship and you start to ask questions, they know that they're more than you than just 2 points or a rebound. And so when I'll hold them to the standard, obviously we have the youth mentorship program. They start to walk with a higher standard because of it. And it sticks with them.
Yep. And do you tell and Shane says, good morning, guys. You had me at people want to be inspired versus told. I've had some great leaders in the workplace, and the very best learned and implemented this style. Very powerful. Right? So what do you do to change the water with that kid who is that, you know what I'm saying? The troublemaker, or the guy, the prima donna, perhaps the one that is it's about me. It's not about the team, and whatever. And we see that, right? We see it in every level of business. We see it in every level of culture. But you have that. What do you do with that bean? Because he's changing the water, and he or she is, and it may not be into gourmet coffee.
Well, I think he alluded to it, or both of us have alluded to it. There's more than just building up the skills. Building up the skills. I mean, there's lots of talented people out there. There's lots of we've had some tremendously talented teams, but if they don't gel together on a personal level, on a relationship level, they're not going to be successful. We've all seen teams where there's a star, and maybe he's scoring 30, 35 points in a game and getting 10, 15 rebounds, but the team just kind of muddles along. Right. What if you inspired the other four out on the floor, and what if you won the battle of the bench that occurs in every game by inspiring everybody to basically bloom where they're planted and put we before me.
Right. I'm with that.
Yeah.
I would also, I look at Duke when you talk about that question. You got so many kids who are super talented, right? All of them are best at their high schools. All of them are top in the nation.
5-star.
You can put a ball in a basket anywhere in the country. But here, this is how our organization is going to move. This is the standard of the program. This is how we arrive to practice. This is how we are after practice. This is how we are attendance to classrooms. This is the standard. If you want to be here, Coach K has ways of, he does sometimes where he puts his arm around the kid. He has sometimes where he blows a whistle and says go. And the kids are running baseline to baseline or bleachers and bleachers. But you have to remind them that the organization and the why, going back to what Coach says, the why is the championship, not your personal stats. We're playing for a national championship. Not this, but for this.
Yeah. Nice. And does that work?
Well, there is another aspect to that too. I mean, I've sat down with we end up usually playing 35 games in a season. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do that this year, but 35 is the limit until you get into the postseason for baseball. And I remember sitting down. There's always that. it's really unique with high school and college teams, because think about this: every year you lose all your senior leadership. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Can you imagine Microsoft or Ford? Well, you've been in a year. Time for all new management.
Oh,
You
no,
know, so
Oh.
it's incumbent to develop that culture
Right.
where you're developing them from the moment they start playing for you as freshmen, and during the entire school years from then on, all the way until they graduate. And there's we talk about building the fundamental 4 C's. You have to be able to communicate openly and honestly. You have to get the connection, and that's building the relationship with people. You have to, then you start getting into the commitment and showing that you care. So it's important to have all 4 of those elements, but it's a building block. It's like putting Legos together. If there's a missing Lego, it just doesn't look like a house or a car, whatever it is that your Lego set is supposed to build.
So you've both said that it's more than just coaching the fundamentals.
Right.
Okay. Now I've recently heard a varsity coach say, "I'm not here to teach you good basketball." If that was the case, I would have been let go a long time ago. Okay. So this particular coach says it's more about life lessons. And I'm going to try to teach you life lessons from what I believe is the right way, rather than teach you good basketball. As a parent, right, of athletes, I say no.
Right.
Your job is to teach good basketball, which in turn then you can transfer into life lessons, right? So, hey, holding your follow through means completing a job.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? In baseball terms, staying down on that grounder means, getting dirty and doing what you have to do to get the job done.
Right.
Maybe I don't know. I'm not a baseball
No,
player.
that's a perfect
I never
analogy.
did baseball,
Yeah.
so.
Sprint all the way through to first base.
Split-
Don't start jogging when you get halfway there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are coaches out there that say that, and the reason that I get upset with that is because I'm like, there are players on that team who need a scholarship to get to the next level, and you're taking that away from them. Oh, great, they'll be happy kids or whatever when they're 40. I don't know. I get very enraged about that.
I think part of the leadership, whether that's business or coaching, is understanding what the important task is, and then understanding who you have as far as players or employees, and then being able to be flexible and adjust to that. Right? John Wooden would adjust based off the talent that he had for what he had on the floor. If he had a small lineup, they'd press more. If they had a bigger lineup, they run a different offense. Your number one task is still to have a winning-ish season if you are a basketball coach. Now, with that, teaching these skills, like you're saying, is going to lead into life skills, because when you're getting disciplined for these drills, you're going to be disciplined in life. When you work hard on these conditions, you're going to work hard when you're in the corporate world. When you are used to the weights and the things like that, and in the off season, putting in the time anywhere else above and beyond just becomes second nature, just because you've done it your entire life as an athlete. But you're doing things that also coincide with the important task, which is back to winning, having a winning season.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 aspects to that. One, we've all heard the Yogi Berra quote about 90% of baseball is half mental. That mental part needs to be developed too. But the other thing is, like you were alluding to earlier, or I was, when we talk with the teams, we usually set out what are we looking for? What is our goal this year? What's our vision? And a lot of times they're entirely result driven. Well, the results will take care of themselves if you've developed right.
Yeah.
In fact, sitting down with the players one time, one of them said, "Our goal is to win 35 games." And I said, and I turned around and asked them, "Now, if we don't win 35 games, say we only win 30, are we still successful? What if we only win 25? Can we be successful with only 15 wins?" And if it's the best that you can put out, and John Wooden is a perfect example of it. Is if you give your best
Right.
out there, if you're working as a team and giving your best, and we come up short, well, okay, there's a lesson. Let's move on to the next game. Let's move on to the next play, whatever, and keep learning and not worry about the results, but keep learning and keep moving forward and taking care of this play that we have right here, or this at bat, or this pitch.
So, as a leader, at what point am I overstepping my responsibilities or my roles? As a leader, I can, especially with this show where we've addressed a lot of hot issues and race and things that are important to be talked about in today's world. But as a leader, is there a time to bring that up, or do I just get on my soapbox and, all right, today before everybody stretches, y'all gonna listen to me about my opinion on blank? Or how do I handle that as a leader, knowing that there's pressing issues? I've got a very formidable clay in front of me as far as whoever's on my team, whether it be business or sports or whatever. And I don't want to just keep it to sports, but how do I, as a leader, lead people through changing the water into gourmet coffee without getting on a soapbox where they then boy, here comes Deaky. Oh man. Oh geez, here we go again. What's he preaching about this week? Right.
Dennis, want to go first?
Well, Urban Meyer from Ohio State, and I guess he's an announcer now, wrote a book that was entitled Above the Line. And basically, you can get so involved with the team that there's a rule for every single thing. But what if you created that atmosphere where you have a standard within the group, whether it's a standard of how hard we work in warm-ups, or how hard we how hard we jog, or how much we compete, and your behavior, given the players the language, your behavior, your effort, all those things that go into making a team, it's either above the line or below the line. And if you have that common language developed within your team, and you set a good example, now that's an entirely different subject, but the leader has to set the standard and hold himself or herself accountable to the same standard as everybody, the entire team. So how do you establish that? Well, it takes a while. That's that cultural development portion. That's the thing that teams or organizations or companies sometimes just put on the back burner because, we've got this due now, that due now. I don't mean to get long-winded about stories, but there's a story told about a guy, and I tell it from the Wisconsin perspective. I say, hey, to go visit Wisconsin, you need a passport to go over the cheese curtain, right? But there's a guy the guy's walking through the forest, and there's a guy cutting a tree down with an axe. He says, hey, what you doing there? I don't do a Wisconsin accent very well. Well, I'm chopping this tree down. How's it going? Says, well, I've been at it for 4 hours. Well, have you thought about sharpening your axe? He says, I ain't got time to sharpen my axe. Well, it's the same thing with leadership. If you don't spend the time on it, you're going to spend an inordinate amount of time on some task, trying to keep up with it, trying to keep up with who's on the team, who's doing what, who's working out the hardest, who's spending the time in the weight room,
Sure. Of course, everybody, you're stuck in the net here, 21.6 the net. That voice you're hearing is our good friend Dennis Mellon from Be a Bean. If people want to know more about what you do or take a look at your courses, where can they find that, Dennis?
Well, you can go to beabean.net.
That's BEABEAN.net.
.net. And of course, the book is on takesmorethanheart.com.
Takes more than heart.com.
Right.
Yep. That's good. Now, same question to you. How do you not, you're very passionate about the racial issues in the United States right now. How do you not get on your soapbox?
I mean, with leadership comes responsibility, and there's a way to do it, right? I think one thing that we get do a great job as far as having conversation with, before I talk about it, middle-aged white people, I'm going to have a conversation with Kent to see like thoughts of before I just say something out of pocket.
So you think I'm middle-aged?
I'm going to have conversations before I just say, hey, based off my perspective, without having conversations to see if I could possibly be wrong. Let me do some research, which is sharpening the axe first. I'm going to have conversations before I just speak on something ignorant on that topic. I'll go back to John Wooden again, though. He did a great job as far as with leadership being the example, more so demonstrating than preaching, because he had like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when he was switching his beliefs to Muslim.
Yeah.
He never said you need to be a Christian. He said, listen, explore these, research it, look at these different religions and find the one that works best for you. I think Bill Walton was more like a freer spirited person
He
for
sure
a while.
was, yeah.
And without preaching to him as far as you need to do this, he allowed him to ask questions and had that open door for dialogue.
He did say, though, you can keep your beard, but you won't be playing at UCLA.
And then at the same time, I think whether this is corporate or on the court, see who you do have. I won't say under you, but as far as who you've been blessed to, have leadership over. And in those ways, or once you look at that, show them that you care, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could be back in the day when they wouldn't let black players stay in the hotel where the coach said, well, we're not going to stay in that hotel.
They had to go in the side door.
That could be certain coaches nowadays wearing certain T-shirts. It's either to say BLM or I can't breathe, to let the players know, hey, listen, I stand with you on these topics. That's not necessarily going above and beyond and soapboxing, but it's letting those who are with you let them know that I'm with you.
Yeah.
And you can go about it that way.
Yeah. And lead instead of preach.
Right. I think that if I'm looking up to Kent, and Kent knows that this is minorities being mistreated, and I don't watch Kent say anything about that topic, well, does Kent really care? Like he says he does. And I think that if you really want to have a gelled organization, you have to protect those who are under your watch.
Interesting. Yeah. So you work for an organization, you're in a position of leadership, and life is good, but you don't necessarily agree with their philosophy on whatever you call it, whatever, whether it's race, whether it's whether it's political, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
As a leader, and you're doing well for yourself. You got a good team, and your team are hitting numbers. I mean, you guys you're knocking it out of the park, but the owner is like a jerk, if I could just put it that way. Then what?
Well, again, it's the owner. I mean, the best you can do is influence. You can try and change that ordinary water into gourmet coffee some way, but it's an influence thing. Plus, I think we need to make an allowance for people to learn. And a story about me where I had an aha moment. I was working with a school board, volunteering on a school board committee that was researching how we could get by with fewer schools, or with the schools that we had with an increasing population. So it was alternate school schedules. So the ideas were bouncing back and forth, and we were freewheeling. And I mentioned, there was a European model where they used to do Saturday morning classes. And the lady next to me shot me a look and said, there is no way we can do that. Saturday is the Sabbath. And okay, learning moment for me. I just, we're promoting ideas, but from that moment on, the next 8 sessions that we had as a group, she wouldn't make eye contact with me, wouldn't acknowledge me, and it was a learning moment for me. So how do we create that atmosphere where there's give and take, and they allow Dennis Mellon, who is not Jewish, had not even considered Saturday being the Sabbath, and just coming up with an idea. We're stifling ideas. There's a fine line between stifling ideas and finding that person that really needs to be changed or converted. We have to have what I'm saying is you have to allow for some learning. You have to have the exposure. Does that make sense? Or?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. To answer on from my side, I would say that you got 2 options, right? If there's the opportunity where I can cause an umbrella from me down, right? Let's say that if for basketball organizations going one way or one sort of philosophy, but I have the relationship with the owner of the organization, that this is how we're going to play defense. We're not going to just stay in zone. We're going to run shell, whatever the case may be. Or if it's a sales organization and my team is hitting numbers and I can kind of put an umbrella where this is, my guys work 4 days a week, but we crush it. And I can protect and I can take more of the brunt that my team doesn't have to. That's an option where you pay the umbrella from you down. Now, if it's a situation where morally and ethically that leadership is causing to a point where you can no longer compromise and that paycheck isn't worth the price of your soul type of situation, then you may have to find another organization. There's been organizations or places of employment in the past where the way they did certain things, I'm going to go in a different direction. It's just not worth that type of paycheck to do those types of things morally or to be hearing those types of comments this consistent.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point.
Stephanie Conley, how are you? Glad to join us. I would put your thing up there, but the mouse and the thing, I don't know. Anyway, so you've got partners, you've got spouses, you've got parents, and your leadership that you guys absolutely do, and you feel good about a teaching lesson. And the next thing you know, the parents jumping out of their car after a practice, the spouse is showing up after work, the partner is whatever. How dare you teach or talk about this to my?
I'll let Dennis go first.
Your job is to manage this group. Your job is to coach these kids. Your job is to make sure the widgets are done. Your job is not that. Now what?
Well, one, it comes from establishing the norm on the very first day with that, and 2, I don't know what anybody else does, but we don't allow that immediately after a game or after a practice. We ask them to call back or make an appointment 24 hours later, and then we can bring the athletic director in, and it allows some time for tensions to cool off a little bit.
Right.
But to do it immediately after there's so many things that need to be done, and it's in front of everybody, and it just it doesn't work. So you have to establish that norm.
Yeah.
But dealing with parents is an ongoing problem, and the best you can do is set up the expectations and hold everybody to the same standard and hold them to accountable for things.
So now
there is no magic, thing that I can do that will convince an adamant parent, especially in the moment, to change their mind.
Yeah. And Phil, you are the athlete. I mean, in your club, you are the head of the boys program. Right. So you are that stop that
would get the manager.
Yeah, that's me. Right. So same thing. I mean,
to go exactly what Dennis said, as far as establishing early, right, a standard as far as 24 hours, 48 hours. This is how we'll go about things. Setting that standard in the expectation early on prevents problems later on, but then also consistency. If you look at Coach Phil page, if you see me on Facebook, these are topics that I talk about
Mhm.
I'm going to talk about that. If
That's
you
true,
know
you are.
Coach Phil, I'm going to speak up for every single person in my network. If someone says anything bad about bald people, even if I had long flowing locks, I'm speaking up because Kent's my friend.
Thank you.
If they talk about Jewish kids, I'm speaking up because I have, these kids that you're not
Jewish
going
players,
to talk. This is what we're going to cover these topics.
Mhm.
You know that. And with me being, like you said, the AD in my situation with the organization, I have a little bit more flexibility. Like if I coached at certain schools in the area, I might get reprimanded for saying certain things.
Sure.
Which is why I don't coach.
That's it. In the area.
I love Fox Valley, but I know I'm
Sure.
either going to tell a kid, God has a plan for you, or this right is right, wrong is wrong. And if that means that I'm not going to be able to stay there because I say those things, then I don't need to be at that location, because I need to be able to have, you see my team. My team is mostly minorities and 2 white kids from my 7th grade organization. So listen, this is why we need to get along. This is why we don't need to say these types of conversations. You need to have his back just like he has your back. We love each other. We have each other's back despite color. We're going to have those conversations under my umbrella. And if a parent has a question, Coach Phil on Facebook, Phil Wallace on Facebook,
Right.
214-538. Right.
Right. And I think, and I absolutely love exactly what you guys are saying. And for those people who are tuning in, this episode has a little different flavor because we do bring up hard issues, and sometimes we don't talk about how to lead through those.
Right.
I mean, because we only have an hour and it escapes us. And that's why we wanted to bring Dennis in. And Dennis is from beabean.net.
Right.
And he can come in. He does a lot of talking and teaching. And you've got a program that people can hook into, newsletters, things like that. And that's why we wanted to have him on here as well, because these are, hopefully we're giving you some ideas of different types of answers and different ways to handle some of the things and some of the tough issues that are out there today, instead of being a follower, instead of just spewing what you've read on Facebook, is to, be a leader and think about it, set some standards for yourself. Right.
I think go ahead, Dennis.
No, go ahead. You got a good point. Go ahead.
I think the other thing with leadership, even in conversations like these, with having the youth mentorship program, like I talked on, it gives us a little bit more flexibility where I'm able to speak with a person like a Dennis. And in situations where if he's not able to speak on a certain topic, we can still have a conversation behind the scenes. And then I can speak on that topic.
Right.
You and I know there's a situation with the school locally, the collegiate level, and there's a situation that happened to some minority kids.
Yep.
And the conversation, as the person that we know, he may not be able to speak on this conversation. Right. I have a microphone. I will gladly speak on this situation because.
But here's the interesting thing about leadership, and this is what makes it exciting and boring and all at once. Is there's never, especially when relationships, there's never a clear-cut answer. The most important thing is to be able to communicate it. Yeah. And basically, a leader has to start getting comfortable in uncomfortable situations. I mean, you can react to a parent screaming to you through the fence at a baseball game, or you can just let it slide, take care of it, tell them that we'll talk afterwards, or we'll make an appointment or something like that. But there's not a clear-cut answer where we can say, okay, here's why, and it's going to satisfy everybody.
Right.
Leadership, oftentimes, you're not satisfying anybody. It's kind of instead of the best answer, it's an answer that will work. Right. That's what's so exciting about it, because I can get with Coach and we can talk back and forth about situations, and I go, I never thought about that. That's going in my playbook. And I don't mean my leadership playbook is what I'm implying.
You ever just want to take a baseball, turn around, and give them a fastball right to the fence where they're standing?
Well, you can do that in your mind, I'm sure.
Right? Yeah.
It's a warning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, that is great That is great advice. If I were to say to you guys, what is the number one most important trait of a leader, you would say the number one most important trait of a leader is.
Want to go first, Coach?
I'll go first. And I've touched on this. I've talked on this every single time. I feel like on today's show, I think the caring part. I really think, obviously the consistency, obviously the expectation, and the development. But I feel like with leadership, when your team, whether that's business, whether that's athletics, know that you care, I listen to you more. I helped some of the community college players, and one kid, because he knew that I cared about him, I would tell him these workouts to do in the weight room, and you could just see all over his face he was not. But because I said it, and he knows I genuinely cared. All right, coach, we here. And he got to it. Yep. Doing things that he had never done before, and some of the stuff where I can't get it off, but he was going to attempt it just because he knew that I was doing this for his best interest. So I think that is a great centerpiece or foundational piece as far as care first and makes the rest of the stuff easier.
All right.
I think his caring fits right in with mine. Mine is relationship, the importance of building the relationship so that you can have those positive, purposeful conversations and inspire trust and the caring in there.
Right.
One of the things that's most admirable about John Wooden was that he cared and he held them accountable, right, and he inspired them. And even 30, 40, he definitely had a 30-year plan with every one of his players.
Yeah.
And they would quote him, and we're still quoting him to this day. Yeah. Because he built those strong enough relationships where he could hold people accountable, be friends with them, show caring, and build that trust where we can open up, where you can say, Dennis, what's been happening with your family this week? I heard such and such, or what's going on in the locker room that coaches don't know about sometimes. Right. Now you coaches, there may be somebody in there monitoring the locker room to ensure that things are going well, but there's still things going on. Even in a dugout during the middle of a game, there's little subplots going on all the time. I shouldn't call them plots, but there's things going on between relationships, where they're competitive and they're digging at each other. How do you get those guys to gel as a team? Well, they'd have to have that relationship where they trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, I have been in leadership for a long, long time, run my own businesses, coached several teams, and I'm quick to argue with people just because that's my personality. I'm that guy where my high school coach said, "Yeah, you'll never play college basketball," and that was just fuel to the fire.
Right.
So when I'm confronted, and it's fight or flight, I'm standing toe to toe and we're fighting. Right. Because and that's not a good thing for a leader, right? But what I've learned to do over the time, and as you get older, you get wiser. And my 50s, I'm loving life because I'm a little bit wiser. Right? Is listening, and that's caring, and that's building relationships. When I can listen to you, and that my mind isn't going, I'm coming back with something, right? I don't care what you're saying. I'm going to just respond and punch you with this response. And we may argue. I think that especially coaching kids, today, my kids, my personal children, I ask them, what are you learning about African-American history in this particular lesson? Or have we even brought that up or whatever? And then just be quiet and let them tell me, not get upset if it's not happening.
Right.
But just I want them to, understand that maybe we should be looking at the other side of the coin on some things. Shayna says the ability to self-regulate the ego and emotions looks important from my side. Yeah, Exactly. And Shana, that's sometimes where I get caught up is like, get the big rooster chest and go, oh, I'm the leader. So, you
Especially in situations like a parent
Yeah,
coaching you. It's like, okay, well, how dare you try to
Yeah.
talk in front of my kids? And
Yeah.
Well,
What would you?
I have a good friend, Lori Parrish, that you probably know.
Oh, yeah, Laura. Yeah, absolutely.
And she does training in transformational conversations.
Yeah.
One of her sayings is listen to connect, not judge or reject. And you think about how powerful that is. There's nothing wrong with asking a question and letting it stay silent and see what it draws. Most people can't handle the silence, and they will fill it in with something. And then you'll be able to figure out what is ticking or what's going on in their head.
Yeah.
By just listening, that poignant pause there where you accept that there's silence here after you've asked a question is so important in coaching and leading. It just allows whatever's bothering you. Like you said, Ken, that sometimes you're ready with a quick retort or something.
Yeah.
You make that quick retort, it slams me really hard. What if I just what if I turned to you and said, Kent, why are you doing this? What's driving this? And then I just sit back. What's driving this?
Yeah, you're in my space. I'm the boss. It's the ego, right? It is
right.
To regulate the ego and emotions, and that's what I mean. I've learned to listen. All right, and I learned to let people understand. This is one of the best leadership things that you can the silence is tricky on the radio. I appreciate that. Let me get back to you.
Right.
Well, I don't need to settle this right here in the gym. I don't need to settle this maybe right here in my office. But you know what? I appreciate your thought on that. Let me get back to you on that. And it's helped out tremendously in a lot of relationships. Right. It's helped out in life in general. And I think that type of leadership where people go, everybody wants instant stuff or to fight. I mean, you take you had people just taking the time to listen this past year in 2020, perhaps we wouldn't have had the same responses. If people would have taken the time to listen in the 70s and 80s, the 90s, maybe we wouldn't have the same response that we have today. I'm just, and it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to Shana's point to put that out there. Crystal, welcome in.
She went to Jacobs.
Hey, she's a Jacob alum, huh? All right. I think a good leader is someone who is willing to not only direct or tell others what to do, but also willing to get in the trenches with those they lead. For example, a boss willing to step in and help their workers get a task done if they are struggling, or a coach willing to jump in and do a hard workout with the team. It builds trust and respect from those you lead when they see you willing to do it with them. Right. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
I was thinking of coaching one of my son's teams. Whenever they did warm-ups, I warmed up with them. I did the jogging. I did all that stuff. Threw the baseball with them, but I felt like showing a good example of how to warm up was really important. But the most important thing out of it is I'm in the fray with them. And I think that came across that way. And I feel like it inspired them. I mean, they would be so disappointed when they didn't perform well on a certain play or whatever. I said, hey, drop that brick and let's move on. Because we've built that level of trust is what we're talking about. And by setting that example, we're saying I'm committed too.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, there were times in my younger managerial days and coaching where I wanted it more than the team. Right. So I'm yelling at referees. I'm yelling at employees. I'm yelling at everybody because I wanted it more than them. And it was hard for me to help them see my why. I was really trying to coach and lead people to my passion rather than theirs. And that's a tough thing to do. I mean,
But
Brutal.
think of the learning curve there, and that's what we have to allow people is a learning curve. Nobody wants to wait.
Yeah.
Everybody wants immediate gratification, but there is a learning curve. And, you can make a mistake and you can recover from it, and you'll be a much better person from that if you take the lesson and move on. What's the Japanese saying of fall down 7 times and get up 8 times?
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to start allowing people to make mistakes, not purposeful mistakes. When people make a purposeful mistake, that's not right. But correcting them on the spot, getting them to look at a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's that's what's really important, is that learning thing. And a lot of times we don't allow that. Like I talked about earlier with the school committee and making the mistake of suggesting Saturday. It wasn't really a mistake. That was a legitimate.
Sure.
Hey, let's put all the ideas out there. But
Yeah.
allow me to learn or to remember. Hey, Saturday's the Sabbath. Yep, it is.
Yeah. And at a Jewish high
I
school.
completely. I'm not. I completely didn't. I never even thought of it.
Sure.
And it was not intentional, but it was a learning moment for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving forward in today's society, in the turmoil of today, we've got about 5 minutes. How do we lead people? How do we lead people to be better people?
You want to go first?
Oh, absolutely. You take this one. Keeping it with coaching, or even in the business. Be the the thermometer? No, be the thermostat, not the thermometer. Right? You determine the climate. We set the climate of what it's going to look like, despite what's going on outside of the school, despite what's going on in the rest of the country. Here, we're unified. Coach Giselle talks about we don't play like this, we play like this, right?
This, yeah.
Here, you have my back, I have your back. Here, this doesn't matter. Here, I give my kids a book of the month to read for my college kids or some of my high school kids, and that's what we're here. We grow ourselves. Here, we don't conduct ourselves like that. I don't care what this coach lets you do. I don't care what these people are doing. This is what it's going to look like here in this organization. And I think that when they see that and they're going to meet that standard and they're growing themselves, since we have that responsibility and that blessing to have these kids and have them at the age where we have their ear, utilize that. Utilize that to speak louder than the nonsense that they're hearing from sometimes parents, friends, relatives, social media, the news. If they're looking up to you, if you've built that relationship, I know him more than I know the person on CNN or Fox News.
Sure.
So if Dennis tells me something, if Dennis says, hey, Phil, I think this is a good book for you to check out. Hey, Phil, I think this is something you can consider on this issue. Because I respect him, because we now have a relationship, I'm going to listen to that more than just some person.
Or a meme.
Yeah. Right. Because I know you, I'm going to trust that more so than what someone else told me.
I heard that you fact check everything that I
Coach, I was just thinking, and this is a shameless plug, but one of the main parts of my book, Takes More Than the Heart, addresses that, is making the connection with people. And I talked to my wife. She was asking me one night, why do you always say things to the waiter or waitress when we're at restaurants? I say, you know what? If you just make a little joke with them and draw them in, you're going to get so much better service. Right. And one of the things I do is, if we're going to have a nice bottle of wine with dinner, I say, how come you only brought 2 glasses? Where's the third? Aren't you going to join us to the waiter or waitress? And it, it just kind of breaks the ice. Now we've connected. It's a slight connection, but we've connected. And that's the key. And that's one of the things that I address in the books that I feel so good about, is making the connection with people. That's so important. Reach out and listen.
I love that imagery, because a good bottle of wine for me and my wife is Boone's Farm on the back of the truck at tailgate.
And if you're going to add bubbly, it's going to be 7-Up or
that's right. Schweppes. That's right. I kid everybody. No, I don't really. But and listen, in today's world, and of course, Dennis, if you could let people know real quick as we're kind of on the last minute of this show, where they can reach you and where they can find your leadership information, that would be great.
Okay. The main website, my Be a Bean website, is beabean.net. If you're looking to buy the book, Takes More Than Heart, just go to takesmorethanheart.com, and there's connection to all the usual vendors. And you can contact me at Dennis Mellon, just like it's spelled in the window I'm in. Dennis Mellon, all one word, at hotmail.com. I'll be happy to connect with you. I'll be happy to talk about the power of positive leadership training that I do, the one-on-one coaching that I do with leaders and coaches. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, Phil, but Brian Kane is a great resource for the mental side of athletic performance. I got certified with him with what do they call it? Mental Performance Master, and it's been a good influence on all the players that I connect with.
So Brian Kane?
Brian Kane, Cain.
Okay.
Mental Performance.
Look into it.
Yeah, you'll like him. He's just a bundle of energy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. So that's going to wrap this one up for us right about this time. We'll throw that on. Is that our new theme music? Is that a good one?
I like that.
That is it. So for everybody here at 21.6 Net, we want to thank you for getting caught in the net with us here on Bridging Civil Tension. We want to thank our good friend Dennis Mellon from beabean.net. And of course, you got Phil Wallace over here. Check him out on all the social medias. Lelos, look at this great shirt that he does. And remember, if you want to make a difference in the world, you have to be a bean to change that water into some gourmet coffee. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you next week. Same bridge time, same bridge channel.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dennis.
Oh, now I got to run over here and get this.
Smooth.